Hi there folks, welcome to this week's Weekly Trade Ideas, Weekly Outlook. It's Monday the 15th of March. Now we've got a lot going on this week in terms of central bank rate decisions out of the US, UK, Japan and so forth. More about that in a moment. Let's have a quick look first at what is going on in the currency markets. This is my faithful momentum meter. It basically tells me what is going on in the currency markets at this moment in time. Now this is on a daily chart. The keys down here on the left, basically each line here, each different color represents an individual currency. You can see here, this purple line up here, that is the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar has been on a rampage higher over the last couple of weeks. We've had some really good job numbers out of Canada as well. We've also got oil prices all helping boost the Canadian dollar's strength. And down here you'll see these two currencies down here, the red and the brown line. These are the low yielding currencies. They're the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen. Now these low yielding currencies tend to underperform when the market is in risk on mode, and risk on is certainly where we are at the moment. Just have to look at the stock market. Stock market's on all-time highs. People are taking on more risk, and by doing so the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc, they get sold on the foreign exchange markets to take on more risk. And then so also in here you'll see the orange line and the New Zealand line. These are above here at the moment, pushing higher as well. That's the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Risk on currencies, they're commodity currencies, they tend to perform as well. But interestingly enough here, you also see this green line. The green line, aptly coloured, the greenback, it's the US dollar, also showing some strength at the moment. The US dollar is being dragged up by the interest rate yield curve you're seeing there in the 10-year government bonds, hitting up there at 1.6. Their 10-year bonds, 30-year bonds are up there over 2%. That's basically having a drag and a possible pull effect on the US dollar, as we're expecting maybe to see a move in interest rates sooner rather than we have heard about in the past. But again, all that will be revealed later on in the week when we get to the FOMC, which is on Wednesday. Right, okay, so let's have a look what we're looking at this week. The boys are here. We're looking at buying the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. Australian dollar has been outperforming the New Zealand dollar. If you look at the higher time frame charts, nicely fanned out moving averages on the daily, showing big momentum to the upside. What we've seen a bit of a pullback and a retest of some support zones. We're expecting, if we see a break and close above where we are around now, 107 sort of 70, we're expecting to see a good push higher in that trend, basically coming up to where we were last week around the 108.30 level, and then possibly beyond that as well. So we're buying the Australian dollar and we're selling the New Zealand dollar. Also, we're looking at the dollar against the Japanese yen. Remember, the Japanese yen is a safe haven currency. Basically, it performs worse when the markets are in risk on. Well, that's where we are at the moment. Bond yields are dragging the US dollar up, and risk on is dragging the Japanese yen down. So that's a risk on trade. It's buying the US dollar and selling the Japanese yen. It's also one of the trade signals that I've got out there at the moment, running in our live trading room. We're looking at a target level of 109.90, and then obviously a challenge of 110, possibly up to 110.50. So looking at a buy of that currency pair. Now I'm looking at the pound against the Swiss. Pound against the Swiss has been performing very well. It's also one of my trade signals that's out there at the moment. We have an open trade in that at the moment. The belief is that the UK are rolling out their vaccines at an alarming rate, and maybe the UK economy is going to emerge out of the pandemic slump faster than their counterparts. So the pound has been bid across the board. We've also got the MPC later in the week. That's the Monetary Policy Committee. That's the UK Bank of England when they're deciding on interest rates. Unlikely they'll be moving interest rates, but the feeling again is that there'll be more sort of hawkish tone, more positive tone coming out of the Bank of England. They'll certainly be watching the UK government bond yields as well, the gilt yields. They've been edging up as well, putting pressure on interest rates potentially to the upside. So pound is going to be potentially supported in this week, and the Swiss, again, another weak currency, the risk-on currency, is going to be performing to the downside. The Swiss finance minister is already talking about intervening in the currency markets, as they regularly do, and also the fact that the interest rates are minus 0.75 at the moment and may even go even further into negative territory. So that's going to have, again, a drag effect on the Swiss franc. Buying the pound against the Swiss franc makes sense And Euro CAD for Max. Now, Max has got the baton. For those of you that follow this video every week, you'll see last week, this was my pick for the week, selling the Euro against the CAD, and boy, was that a good trade. We smashed through profit targets in that trade. Now, Max has got the baton, and he's taking this trade lower as well for trade continuation. He's looking for basically a break out of the 147.70 level, and then maybe shorts down to 145. So still taking on that trade to the downside. And Paul is looking at gold. Again, if you're following these videos each and every week, you'll see that Paul called gold lower last week. He called 1690. Boy, was that an accurate call as well. Pretty much bounced off 1690, traded a little bit lower and then rallied again. Paul is now going long gold for the short term, potentially looking up at 1780, where he would maybe look to see another level of resistance hit. So he's taking gold higher as well at the moment. Okay, so we've got a lot of news out this week, as I said, a lot of central bank rate decisions. We've got the central bank rate decision, the RBA minutes of their last meeting, basically giving us the clues of what they will be looking at in terms of their economic projections. Are they getting maybe sort of more confident about moving rates to the upside at some point? So the minutes will be widely watched there. But then we've got the FOMC, which stands for the Federal Open Market Committee. It's basically when the Fed decide on interest rates. Again, we're not expecting them to move interest rates, but all eyes will be watching on the follow-on statement as well by Powell as well to see what their views are. Already been notified that they're looking at the bond yields as well, as they are edging higher. They're aware of that as well. At some point, they're going to have to budge interest rates as well. They say they're going to fight it, but how long can they fight it for? At the moment, the upward pressure is definitely on those short-term rates. You're seeing that in the currency markets anyway, with the US dollar edging higher. So I'll be watching the Fed on Wednesday to see exactly what they come up with there, any sort of clues as well. We've also got some retail sales out in the US later on in the week, which is again a very important bunch of data. Retail sales is a sort of like an early indication of inflation. If people are spending money, then obviously retail sales numbers go up. That basically means it's inflationary, and the Fed are looking at that as well. They'll be looking maybe at that upward pressure in interest rates as retail sales and inflation creeps higher. And then later on in the week, as I said, we've got the Bank of England MPC decision. Again, unlikely to move interest rates, but again, they'll be looking at those yields as well. We've also got the Bank of Japan, not on this little summary here. Bank of Japan later on in the week. I think that's on the. I think that's tonight actually. Bank of Japan. So we are watching that to see if they give us more clues as well on where the interest rates may be going there. Not again likely to move rates, but it's the forward statements that we're looking for. Some clues of what the central bankers are thinking. Okay, so we are streaming live around the clock. 5 days a week, not 7 days a week just yet, but 5 days a week. We're streaming up to 7 times a day. You can, of course, take part. All you need to do is sign up, register below, and we'll see you in there. You can discuss any of these opportunities and many, many more in those streams. You can get a chance to speak to us directly as well on a one-to-one. So I look forward to seeing you in there. If you're not inclined to do so, no problem. I will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a good week.